Welcome to Real Estate Exposed, helping people in San Diego buy, sell, and refinance their biggest investment, delivering you timely truths, exposing important issues, and helping you get into the right home. Here are your hosts, real estate expert Daniel Beer, top-ranked professional by sales volume at one of San Diego's largest brokerages, and his mortgage partner, Todd Pianin, with over $2 billion in funded loans.
Hey, what's happening? I'm so glad to be here back with you. I'm Daniel Beer Group at Windermere, and my man Todd Pianin of Home Street Bank, who is typically our co-host here on the show, he is out, and so you have me and you have some special guests. Brian Danny, the leading top buyer specialist, not just for the Daniel Beer Group, but for the brokerage and in a true buyer specialist role for the county. And we're still trying to verify outside the county, but you have a true buying professional, the man that I just trusted to represent my own brother on the purchase of his home. And the reason why will become abundantly clear as we pick Brian's brain here on what issues are buyers facing in the marketplace right now. We spent a lot of time talking about home selling. But buyers have their particular set of issues and their particular set of opportunities. And so let's find out exactly how you can make the most out of the market by leveraging the mind and one of the greatest minds of one of the best buyer specialists here in the country. Okay? And then we have Joe McShane, listing services specialist here with the Daniel Beer Group. And we are going to have an awesome show. And there's just a lot going on in our local. There's just so much going on, from the Carlsbad mall mess to what's happening with the Chargers here. And guys, you saw that. Again, the team has kind of shifted focus, and they're heading off to trying to figure out to see if they can make something happen in the downtown market, which I would love from a real estate perspective.
Yeah, really interesting. Hello, everybody out there. Happy to be here again. Just going through the Chargers, it was interesting to find out yesterday that they're really focusing the push on the downtown area, which to me makes sense. I mean, really, Petco Park, one of the nicest ballparks out there, and to have all facilities all in one area just really makes sense. I know they have until sometime in January of 2017 to really make their decision if they're going to be leaving here and headed to Los Angeles, but excited to see that.
So it'll be interesting to see if they do push this through. Will the city accept what was proposed, which would be $549 million of city-funded expansion there downtown, and it's a contiguous plan with the convention center. Now, my concern, Joe, my biggest concern about this, because keep in mind, I love the idea of the downtown plan, and there are real estate implications here that. Let's face it, right? Downtown, eventually it would have gone to where it is, but it wouldn't. We would be a decade behind if it weren't for Petco. And so I'm really hopeful for all those reasons. But the one thing I'm just a little bit hesitant here about is every time we reverse course, you're getting rid of any momentum whatsoever that you've been able to build, right? So it's like we're always back to square one. We'll see if they can maybe just stick with this, right? It's like the old business principle. If you keep switching your processes, if you keep changing systems, if you keep going from one, internet system to a different internet system, or one operating system to a different operating system, you never give your team the chance to build momentum. And I want to see San Diego and the Chargers build momentum, but I have to say that it's really nice to see the spirit in which conversations are moving forward, and there just seems to be a lot more good faith than there was previously before the vote happened at the NFL level, which kept the Chargers here for another year.
Well, I agree as well. There's been a lot of different ideas of where to put it, and there's been a lot of difficulty working with the city and working with the owner of the Chargers, Spanos, as to exactly where to place this. I love the idea of downtown, because you look at downtown right now, and specifically if you look what happened when they put Petco Park in, if you look at the gas lamp, or you look at what's now happening in East Village with what Pinnacle is doing, building two massive towers, 485-unit buildings. There's this insurgence into East Village that is making downtown look drastically different. And if it continues, and if the Chargers and the city can gain momentum, I think that you've got a real opportunity to keep the team here. The only variable is what Spanos wanted to do and what ended up happening with Carson. And I almost personally feel like there's a bit of a trump card that's him holding on to this move to LA, because I don't really think that he wants to match up and share a facility. I think that they want to keep this team in San Diego at the Chargers level, and it's just what's going to happen with a vote and what's going to happen with the location, because I don't think the Qualcomm location is gonna factor in or work out at all.
So you're listening to Real Estate Exposed right here on News Radio 600 KOGO with Daniel Beer, the Daniel Beer Group, and various members here of our team, Brian Danny and Joe McShane. And how this relates to real estate. You know, Joe mentioned these towers going up downtown, but even with that construction, there is still so much need for housing inventory here locally, and hopefully this move downtown would spur some new construction, some new apartment buildings and condo buildings, and really be able to have high density living, which is where we need to go more and more in order to deal with the natural constraints of what San Diego County is. You know, the reality is you have this Pacific Ocean to the left, and you have a place called Mexico to the south. You have the desert to the east. You have Camp Pendleton north, and as we all know, there's, you know, the single family home is more and more so becoming a thing of the past. In that, if you own one, good for you. You own something that is not very likely to be built in great quantities any longer moving forward. And really, it's high density, mixed use living that hopefully the stadium can provide, because San Diego has one of the lowest inventory levels for housing versus its need in the entire country. And we're going to go into a very interesting study that Zillow actually put together regarding that. You're going to be shocked at just how dramatic the housing picture looks from a scarcity standpoint, and we'll have a conversation around how that will actually support pricing here, at least for the foreseeable future. And much to that point, you have investments going in places like Chula Vista. A $20 million apartment building just broke ground. Why? Well, I'll give you a clue. It's probably because the developers like money. And it's probably because they were looking forward to really juicy rents. And if you are still renting when you should be putting a plan in place in order to own your home, right? Because if you're steadily employed, you need to get a plan in place. A lot of people believe that it still takes 20% and 10% and 15%, and you have to have all this cash. But there are a number of ways in which you can get into a property with a low down payment or very little down. And in fact, last week we gave away a free report talking about exactly how you can do the same. We're going to give out a number here shortly in order for you to reach out to us and get your copy of that free report. We're going to offer it up again. But Brian, you work with buyers here on a regular basis. What have you seen between what they go to from renting to buying and what that does to their monthly expenses?
It's a great question, Dan. I mean, a lot of my buyers out there are trying to make an easy transition, not be shocked with a sticker shock with what their mortgage is going to look like versus rent. And we've been able to accomplish that. And it's just really being aligned with the right partners in place and make sure that
they can typically keep the same payment or actually drop it. Am I wrong? 100%.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of flexibility there. And, there's a lot of ways, as Dan has already alluded to, that, you can get into a home comfortably without putting down a big down payment. So a lot of options out there, and more than happy to discuss that further.
So when a buyer is looking at buying for the first time, getting out of the rental, being in a rental and going into being a homeowner, there are benefits beyond just the payment and just the monthly aspect of it, right? Just the cash flow, month-to-month cash flow aspect. I mean, it's amazing when we get back together with some of these people that we've helped get into a home, and so many of them have used you to get into that home, and then just what it does to, you'd be amazed when you go out in that backyard and you have that grass under your feet, just how much greener it feels, how much fluffier it feels, just how much warmer the sun feels when it's something you own.
That's right.
It's something you own.
Yep. And a lot of that, just real quick here, something worth mentioning. We had a situation recently where we actually helped a buyer purchase his home for the first time, And for various reasons, he had to relocate for a job, and he was able to sell that and build a little equity there on the home in just a short period of time. So there's a lot to that.
If you want to get that free special report, go ahead. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give out my personal cell phone.
What?
Which isn't. It's no. I'm going to give out my personal cell phone, which isn't out there anywhere. But I'm going to go ahead and give that out because we're going to make it very easy for you to get that report and get you on a plan to sit down, have a proper consultation with a true buyer specialist, and how can you buy with little down. That phone number, and I kid you not, it's my personal cell phone, 858-337-7409, 858-337-7409. Just text me your name, your email. We'll make sure we get that report out to you. We had a lot of nice comments on that report from those of you that took advantage of it last week. So here's what we're going to do heading into the break. We're going to come back and talk about this inventory crisis here around San Diego County. You're going to be very surprised at what you find with the numbers. And then if you are a buyer, how do you take advantage of that? By the way, if you're a seller, how do you take advantage of that and lock in rates that just continue to amaze despite the Fed hike rate? You're listening to Real Estate Exposed here on News Radio 600 KOGO with Daniel Beer of the Daniel Beer Group, and we're going to be right back with you. Ooh, Mike chose a groovy song there as we come back to Real Estate Exposed here on News Radio 600 KOGO with Daniel Beer of the Daniel Beer Group. Todd Pianin, Home Street Bank, lender that we love entrusting a lot of our clients to. He's not in the studio with me today as he typically is, but we're having a blast because we have Brian Danny and Joe McShannon here from the team, from the Daniel Beer Group, and there is a huge story coming out. Huge story regarding inventory levels. Now listen up, because this is going to affect you if you're buying or if you're selling. If you're buying or selling, you need to have a strategy in place to take advantage of exactly what we're about to share with you. Huge story, a study that just was published. And it showed, and it might have answered, by the way, why, if you're having a hard time purchasing a home in San Diego County, it might be answering that question for you. The county had the biggest drop in home sales in homes for sale. Big difference. So let me revise that. The county had the biggest drop in homes for sale in the country from January 2015 through January 2016. All right, so when we're talking about low inventory around San Diego County, we're talking about how much supply is there, how many properties are available, how many homes are on the market available to a buyer for purchase. San Diego County had the biggest drop in homes for sale in available inventory in the country. Year over year, 2015 to 2016, going January to January. And that's according to a study by Zillow and their real estate tracker in their last report. So how much did our housing inventory decline? It wasn't 5%. Which would be a big number, by the way. And it wasn't 10% or 20%, which would be huge numbers, but it was 30.2% decline in housing inventory. Wow. So if you're thinking of buying or selling a home, this has major implications to your approach and strategy, and more than ever tells a story on why you have to be aligned with a professional that can help you take advantage of it and understand how to operate in this environment. Okay, that's why we have Brian Danny here in the office, or in the office, in our new beautiful office here at the iHeartMedia Studios here at KOGO. That's why we have Brian Danny here in studio, because we need to hear from somebody who day in, day out puts buyers under contract at incredible, at amazing valuations, where you're walking in with equity. And how is that being done when there's so little inventory, so much competition, and you have to have somebody that knows how to navigate this environment? This is the same guy, by the way, that sold a home. When did you sell Grape? When did you sell them that property?
That was, I want to say about 9 months ago, 10 months ago.
About 9 or 10 months ago, sold a home to somebody who just turned it for a profit. And by the way, it wasn't purchased as a flip. They had intended to live there. And when you intend to live somewhere and you make what's supposedly a market rate purchase, and then you turn it 9 to 10 months later and you can make a profit clearing commissions and closing costs, that is huge. Huge and amazing. And that's why people work with Brian Danny. If you want to connect, if you're thinking about buying a home and want to sit down with somebody that actually understands how to put a plan and a process in place for you to be able to have the home you want and predictably be able to beat out other buyers, even when those other buyers are cash or have huge down payments and you don't, you need to call in and just ask for Brian. The number to connect with Brian is 858-755-1999. And that number again is 858-755-1999. So Brian, given the low inventory levels, where we're literally number one in declining housing inventory year over year, okay, we were followed by Charlotte and Seattle, two other markets that are doing quite well. What are you doing to be able to position your clients in order for them to be able to beat out offers that on paper might have looked stronger? Yeah. How are you actually getting the listing agent to push your offer through?
There are a lot of things, and it's constantly thinking outside the box and seeing how we can make our offer as much, as attractive as possible. But it's important to note, I've had in this first quarter here, I've had dozens of clients that were competing with other buyers out there. And I want to say about 95% of those ended up moving forward with us. And there are a lot of reasons as to why.
Well, you've put 7 or 8 buyers under contract just in the month of February?
Yes. Yeah, 7. 7. And January and February in a competitive market where there's a pool of just tons of buyers.
How many of your buyers, those 7 buyers, how many of those were cash?
One of them.
So the other 6 had financed offers.
Yes.
And how many of those had to compete against cash?
Almost all of them. I think for the exception of one.
There's an exceptional amount of cash out there right now.
Yeah, unbelievable. And really targeted at certain price points, too.
But let me get this straight. I'm selling my home. I get an offer from, Realtor Bob and from Realtor Brian Danny. Mm-hmm. Realtor Bob has a cash offer. Brian Danny, you are presenting me with one that's not. Mm-hmm. Are you just offering tons of money more, or are you structuring what are you doing to actually get the deal done?
It depends on the house, the market, and how competitive it is. Sometimes, yes, we have to come a little more aggressive on price, but it goes beyond that. It's really reducing contingencies that really don't cost you anything. And what I mean by that is you have the way the residential purchase agreement is written. You have 17 days to do your due diligence and investigate the house. And
that's a lot of days.
It's a lot. It's a lot of time. And frankly, when we open up an escrow, we're scheduling that inspection within the first 24 hours. And when working with a group like our team here, it's all about being aligned with the right partners, because we can accomplish and get a report within 36 hours. We have plenty of time to negotiate. So reducing that investigation and gives the seller a little more comfort level that you're motivated and you're willing to do all your due diligence up front. It makes a big difference.
So you're finding ways in which to increase the value of your client's offers, or perceived value, I should say. Perceived value, where you're not necessarily going at price, but rather how can you make your offer look as competitive as cash and make your buyer look more committed. Coming out of the break, we're going to be talking more with Brian step by step on the things that he implements for his buyers that he can make himself available to you in order to win that deal. I know there's a lot of frustration in the marketplace, especially among buyers that are losing out on the home that they want. We're going to solve that for you step by step. Let's take advantage of the current environment, whether you're buying or you're selling. We're going to have a winning plan. You're listening to Real Estate Exposed on News Radio 600 KOGO with Daniel Beer of the Daniel Beer Group in Windermere Homes. Welcome back to the third segment here of Real Estate Exposed on KOGO 600. You're with Daniel Beer of the Daniel Beer Group, Windermere Homes and Estates. And you have Daniel Beer Group members here. Joe McShane, listing services specialist. Carpet extraordinaire.
Carpet extraordinaire indeed.
The man just knows an awful lot about carpet, so we tease. But the guy's brilliant, and he adds tons of value on the service platform for our sellers. And Brian Danny doesn't need much introduction. One of the leading buyer specialists across the country. And let's just take a quick moment to define what buyer specialist means. Okay? A lot of you that are out there working with a traditional agent need to understand that your agent isn't just an agent. They're also the marketing department, the admin department, the transaction closing department, the listing management department, the compliance department.
That's a lot of hats right there.
A lot of hats, right?
Yeah.
Most people are just wearing too many hats. And, they're the listing agent, they're the buyer agent, they're the showing agent, they're inside sales, they're the appointment setting department, they're the follow-up department. I mean, there's just a lot of hats being worn by most agents. I know because I was there myself. I lived that life of having to do everything and understanding what it's like to be very stretched very, very thin as far as my bandwidth would go in those days because I was having to do too many things and I wasn't necessarily an expert at any one of them. When I say Brian Danny, when I'm introducing here Brian Danny as our buyer specialist, and it's a fact, one of the leading buyer specialists across the country, that's his one thing. It's literally his one and only thing. So if you are out buying a home, do you want to be with someone that, could possibly be there, might not be able to make it, might not, have negotiated a certain aspect of a contract in the past, may have seen it, may have not. Are you going to have open heart surgery with someone who's a general medicine doctor, or are you going to have a specialist? And while that's maybe an extreme and convenient analogy, it's still nevertheless just as true. This is why when my brother recently purchased a property, I didn't actually go out and help him on that purchase myself because I am not that. I mean, Brian just knows far more as far as being what a buyer needs and what to look for and what to negotiate and the nuances. And I learned something really interesting here from Brian on a recent transaction. Brian, I was looking at a recent transaction that you negotiated for a buyer. There were multiple offers. Mm-hmm. Some of them were cash, and it was a pretty intense process in trying to win. Mm-hmm. I thought your client was just going to keep going up and just competing on price. And then all of a sudden you did something really interesting. You said, you know what? Everyone else is competing on price. And we're already at a good price. Mm-hmm. So instead of just throwing money at price, why don't we actually allocate some of those dollars to something like paying HOA fees up front?
That's right.
Why? And you basically found a way to make a $500 upfront HOA fee, completely differentiate your offer, and add disproportionate value to the perceived value to your client's position.
Yeah. That's one example of many that I have done, and it really goes a long way. And that dollar value is it's tremendous when you're really in a competitive market and you're dealing with, in this particular situation, 8 other buyers, and you can apply that to whether it's HOA
you had
fees.
8 other buyers on that
8
one?
other buyers.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and they selected us. HOA docs and having the buyer pay that, even maybe taken away, which is very standard in today's market, a 50-50 split for escrow fees, which really amount to $1,000 or $2,000. But taking taking that to account and really focusing
basically
on
allocating dollars instead of to price, instead of adding $2,000 to your offer. Just go ahead and offer to pay for the escrow fee.
That's right.
It's going to kind of put the seller into shock because no one else has offered that.
Right.
They're going to say, because let me tell you something from my perspective.
It adds a lot more value to the deal.
Well, from my perspective, and Joe, when we're looking at buyers presenting offers on our listings, sometimes we do have these, 9 offers, 12 offers, whatever it might be. It's hard to differentiate the buyer. And something that we place huge value on isn't just who's offering the biggest and highest price. A lot of agents just get stuck there. We understand that, if all of a sudden there's a buyer that's saying, hey, look, we'll pick up the HOA upfront fee, and we'll pick up the, we'll pick up the escrow fee, or we'll pay for title, fees that typically always are being paid by the seller.
That's the
now
norm.
we're thinking, you know what? Because aside from just squeezing out another $1,000 here for the seller, we have a responsibility to also choose a buyer who's committed and is going to close.
Absolutely.
Especially, let's say the property's vacant. Well, that's causing our seller money every day. And so we need to put a stop to that bleed. And sometimes being able to, if someone were to do something like that, Brian, if you were to present an offer like that, and then all of a sudden, your offer just stands out as, maybe it's not the highest price. Maybe someone else is offering more. But this guy here, he's committed to the deal. And I can go to my client and say, you take this one, I'm pretty darn sure you're going to get a check because we're closing.
Absolutely.
And that has big value.
Yeah, that client wants to make it, if Brian sends that offer, and all the offers, Dan, that you and I have looked at, I mean, some of them just blend together, but when you see an offer like that, it shows that commitment, and it says, and it makes it easy for you to say to our clients, like, this person is not only more than likely to get you a check, but this person wants to make your life easy as this goes through escrow and closes.
That's right.
That's exactly right.
You guys hit the nail on the head here. It's making it very clear to the agent and the seller, the listing agent that is, that we are motivated to move forward.
So as a listing agent, as that is my role on the team, I am the team's listing specialist. I get offers constantly where they just pop into my email inbox. I haven't even spoken to anybody. They just all of a sudden appear. Is there anything that you can do in the presentation process to immediately get a leg up for your buyer?
Always. And it makes the biggest difference. I can't even tell you. Not only do I have...
What do you do?
You see a lot of these offers come in, and Dan, you can speak to this a little bit more than me, but they're black and white offers. You don't know who the buyer is. There's no education. You don't know if they have a family. I actually package all my offers up with a little background on who my buyers are, and it really makes a big difference. You get a lot of pride and ownership in a lot of these with a lot of these sellers, and they want to know who's going to carry on that legacy. So it's just a big thing with these buyers and really presenting it and making it as colorful as you possibly can.
But even if it's not that emotional.
Not even that emotional, it's just being in good communication with the listing agent and being,
Because it's my job as a listing agent, if my seller tries to lets emotion come into it, oh, these guys are going to take such good care. I actually try to remove that emotion. Yeah. But from my perspective, and there's other agents that present good offers the way you do, and so when an offer is presented like that, it goes beyond just, it's not about the emotion, frankly, because I try to remove that. It's about the fact that, if I have 7 offers, this agent's actually called me, let me know who's buying, let me know why, where are they coming from, why are they moving.
And probably highlighting terms of the deal that they put together for you, too, so you're not going to have to go out and look for it.
Absolutely. They're going to make my life easier.
Right.
So, there is value beyond price. If you get aligned with the right real estate professional and you're buying a home, you get aligned with a Brian Danny, you're going to save money on the purchase price because he's going to be able to package value other ways and make you stand out, especially in today's low inventory environment. It's critical. It's important. You're listening to Real Estate Exposed right here with the Daniel Beer Group members, and why don't you go ahead and connect with Brian? Just sit down. Here's the cool thing about the process with Brian. If you call, and that number is 800-676-2420, just call and say, Brian, I just ask, I want to have a consultation with Brian. Come into the office. There's so much just broken about the way people buy homes. First, starting with the fact that so many people just run around calling signs and sending Zillow inquiries, and they have like 17 different agents all on top of them annoying the crap out of you. Well, how about you just call in, request a meeting with Brian. There's no obligation to it of any sort. Just sit down with him and map out a plan. Here's what we want. Here's what we're looking for. Here's why. Does it exist? Does it not? How hard will it be to find? Where should we look? Because coming up here out of the break, and before we go to that, let me give you the phone number one more time to connect with Brian. The number's 800-676-2420. One more time, 800-676-2420. And coming out of the break, Brian's held back his biggest and best tactic and technique and skill for helping you buy in a competitive environment. What if, and let's paint the picture here, what if, just to tease you, what if you could buy in a market of your own? What if you could buy where no other buyers exist, where they don't live, where they are not even privy to the fact that there is available housing inventory? What if you could call the shots as a buyer? Brian has that one for you coming up. You're listening to Real Estate Exposed here on News Radio 600 KOGO with the Daniel Beer Group. We're going to be right back. This is one of those days where there's just not enough time for everything we need to cover here on Real Estate Exposed. Being enlightened by Brian Danny of the Daniel Beer Group. We have Joe McShane here in studio as well. Not only is he the team's listing services specialist, but he's also our political
pundit.
Pundit, thank you. He is. And look, here's a Super Tuesday's coming up.
Woo!
And Joe, because the big thing here and the big promise in this segment and in our little time is Brian's going to reveal the biggest and best way in which he has buyers making their own market where they don't have to compete against other buyers, especially given the low inventory levels, which are creating multiple offers. How do you as a buyer avoid that competition and call the shots? Before we go there, Joe, what is the Super Tuesday outlook? What does it feel like? What are the things to watch for? And this is a very big day in our nation's history coming up, as it is every 4 years.
This is the Super Bowl of politics. I mean, we're jumping right into it. And there's a lot going on. I'm excited about it. And I think that everybody should pay close attention to this because as a home buyer or as a United States citizen, this impacts your life for the next 4 years.
What does the listener need to know over the course of the next 3 minutes?
The next 3 minutes, the listener needs to know that Super Tuesday is less than 36 hours away. And my prediction that I'm making right here on Real Estate Exposed is that the winners that are going to come out of this and who you're going to see as the nomination from the Democratic and the Republican side, it is going to be Donald Trump and it is going to be Hillary Clinton. Bernie Sanders is...
Now, Bernie's hot. What's going on with Bernie?
Bernie's hot, but Bernie's hot in these like one-state races, in these one-state caucuses. I don't think that he can blanket 12 different regions of the United States the way that Hillary's going to. And Bernie also, unfortunately, doesn't have the African-American vote that Hillary Clinton has taken from him.
Now, what is Bernie's track record in the Senate? Because he's been there for a long time.
Right. Bernie has been there for a long time. And you know what? Bernie has always preached the same thing. You can't accuse Bernie of being a flip-flopper, but I don't see Bernie as getting things done on the Senate floor as we've seen with other candidates that come up. We're talking about 353 bills that Bernie Sanders has tried to put into law in his 16 years.
He's proposed 300 and how many?
353. He has 3 signed bills.
3
in 16 years.
So he has like a less than 1% win rate.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a social.
So his ideas are not. His ideas have been largely rejected.
His ideas have been largely rejected.
And that's probably being kind?
Yeah, I would say that that's being kind because I think that they are just ideas. When you hear what Bernie Sanders is saying, they speak great to the masses because they sound like wonderful ideas in a society where we have a diminishing middle class. But what's the meat behind it? How are you going to make education free? Show me exactly how you're going to tax that and then get people to vote for that. Who is going to stand behind that idea, and how is that going to work in our economy?
He should maybe run for office in Denmark.
I would agree.
Or in Norway or some other.
Yeah. Iceland.
Okay. So how does Donald Trump take this, and what do you see? You know, does Rubio or Rubio and Cruz and the votes? People are saying the vote is being split between Rubio, Cruz, and if only one. How does that play out?
So this is how this one plays out. My prediction is still Trump and Hillary. However, there could be a little coup that's run in the Republican Party, and that is, I believe it would be that Cruz would step down and then Rubio would take over the Cruz votes. And that is going to have to happen quickly. Otherwise, Trump is, and at this point, he's probably too far ahead to be caught right now.
And we have to tell the audience something, which is that this week, this show was actually recorded on Wednesday. So if you're listening to this and Joe's prediction has already come through, you know why. Okay, you know why we are predicting it if it's already become true, but it'll be interesting to see where we are this next week.
And if you still have Dan's cell phone number and my prediction was correct, give him a call and tell him to give me a raise.
So, Brian, you're listening to Real Estate Exposed, and Brian Danny's going to share with you his number one biggest secret on how to get yourself ahead of other buyers without having to pay more. And we're going to close the show out with this. Brian, you have 2 minutes. Enlighten us and add value to our listeners' lives.
You know, quickly, I've been on the show before, and I've mentioned it. It's really when you are your own competitor. When you are dealing with yourself and the seller, and I am able to find off-market inventory for my clients.
What does that mean?
That
off-market
means, Dan,
inventory.
No, it's a great question because a lot of people don't understand what that is. That is something that is not currently on the MLS, that is not out there and not marketed. You don't know about it, and that's me just going and door knocking, canvassing. And let me note this real quick. It's once we've identified and we had a blueprint of a particular neighborhood, particular area you are looking for, in a particular floor plan, we will find it, and we have.
So you're saying that your buyers can buy more than only the next home that hits Zillow, or only the next home that hits MLS that all the other buyers are after. You actually can implement certain strategies so that your buyer can get ahead of the market and identify home sellers that have not yet raised their hands to the masses.
Yes.
Is that right?
It is
advantageous pricing as well?
Yes, and you know what?
Well, absolutely, because you have less competition.
That's right. That's right. And I have a proven track record. If you have any interest, I'd be more than happy to.
If you want to, if you want to connect with Brian, because we have to close the show out. Unfortunately, like I said, we don't have enough time today. You want to connect with Brian and put a plan in place for your purchase. The phone number is 800-676-2420. You're listening to Real Estate Exposed with the Daniel Beer Group and our missing co-host Todd Pianin of Home Street Bank. The number to connect with any of us on any buying, selling, or mortgage questions is 800-676-2420. God bless you, and here is to a very prosperous week.
If you call, I will find it.
Super Tuesday.